So the FAA's trust training coming right up. What's up, all drone maniacs? Welcome back to Drone Logic for your drone and tech related info from my point of view. So y'all know that I've said many times that when it comes down to the FAA and the drone hobby, it's kind of like the Wild West. You know, they're always tweaking things, changing things, adding things, sometimes taking things away, all in an effort to improve the safety of the hobby rather than just banning it. So I can appreciate that. Now the latest thing that we have is trust that the FAA has brought forth. Now what is trust? Well, in this video I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover what is trust. I'm going to cover where you can go to take the training, and I'm going to cover my final thoughts. I'm going to give my final thoughts on the whole training. Anyway, trust basically, what stands for the recreational UAS safety test, is basically the FAA's Part 107 equivalent for recreational pilots. You know, if you want to fly recreational, you have to take this training, which is not hard. And I don't understand why, you know, a licensed Part 107 pilot would have to take the training, but yes, you do. So the Part 107 will not cover you for recreational flying. So again, even if you are a licensed 107 pilot, you have to take the training. You have to take this training again, which would not be difficult. If you have a Part 107 license, this is not going to be hard for you at all. Now, basically, this trust is just simply basic information that any pilot really needs to know and should know. You know, so it comes in, there are 5 parts to this test. As I went through it, there are 5 parts to the training. Now the first part is the introduction, and it basically, introduction just introduces you to the hobby, you know, what it is to fly in classified space and restricted space, and introduce you to the basics of the drone itself. You know, introduce you to your drone. Now the other 4 parts, each one of them have their own test at the end of it that you have to take. Now the second part is all about airspace, you know, more in depth into airspace and restriction, you know, how to request authorization of flying airspace, you know, on how to use LAANC, all about the LAANC system. And the third part is basically a pre-flight. It's all about pre-flight, checking your drone, you know, things that you need to know yourself, different hazards, attitudes, and, you know, just pre-flight, everything about pre-flight, checking your drone, checking yourself, you know, understanding how different drugs, whether it's over the counter or not, can affect your performance, alcohol and such, how these things affect you. Now the fourth part is all about line of sight, you know, safety guidelines, things that you really need to know when it comes down to flying drones. And of course the fifth part is all about the drone systems, understanding your drone, how the drone flies, the different parts of the drone. Again, just educating you and everything that you really need to know to really fly these drones to maintain safety. Now, once you finish and you pass all the tests are usually, the average is like 7 questions each of the 4 parts. Like 7 questions, maybe 8 or 9, but I think the average is like 7 questions that I remember. And once you finish, you get a certificate, a PDF file that you download, and you can print up a copy of it and you keep that on you. But the thing is, you have to maintain it and keep it, because once you lose it, there's no records kept of this. So if you lose it, you have to go through the training again. So you have to make sure when you download that PDF, make sure you save it on your smartphone, your device, or whatever, because if you don't have it anymore, you have to just take the test, which is honestly, retake the test, honestly, is not that difficult. Again, for a licensed Part 107 pilot, wouldn't be difficult at all. Now, it's just like the recurring test, is 100% free. So if anyone charges you any money to take the test, you know you're in the wrong spot. 100% free. And I would say the average person out there, if you're a beginner, give yourself, I would say, 30 to 40 minutes to understand it. Me, when I took it, I knew all the information already, so I pretty much breezed through it in about like 20 minutes or so. Now, where can you take the training? Well, the FAA has a link to all the approved administrators right now, and I'll put a link in the description if you want to go to and select some any one of those providers. Me, I went with Pilot Institute because I have my 107 training through Pilot Institute. I'm familiar with their whole website, so that's what I went through, and it was a pretty good. Again, I'm giving y'all my breakdown of what it is based upon going through Pilot Institute. I'm not sure if other people are different, but this is through Pilot Institute where I would recommend it. It was simple, quick, fast, to the point. There's no video. It's all text that you read from beginning to end, unlike the recurrent test. Now, my final thoughts on this is I'm actually glad that the FAA is doing this here in America, because I know when I first got into the hobby, I knew absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about airspace, findings of airspace. I only learned about these things once I started doing research on everything I would need to know to fly a drone. And that's when I found out about, again, the Part 107 test. I learned about DJI. I learned about airspace, and you can't, different types of airspace out there. And again, this is information that I think is great for new pilots. Really, new pilots really need this. So if you're jumping into the hobby for the first time, you now have some basic information on the things that you really need to know as a pilot, regardless. Because I knew the requirements for licensed 107 pilots, commercial flights, and I'm thinking, well, why isn't recreational pilots why don't recreational pilots need to know this or know this? They really should, really truly do. So I'm really glad that the FAA came up with this training. So again, make the hobby safer for new pilots who are getting into it. They will have information out there they really need to know. Now, the only part that I don't like about this is the fact that licensed Part 107 pilots have to take this. I don't understand it, because there's really nothing on here that's not on the recurrent training. So we as licensed 107 pilots, we know all of this. So it's kind of a hindrance to us. I wouldn't say it's a huge hindrance, because like I said, if you have your Part 107 license, you know everything on that test, you'll breeze through it. But the fact that you actually have to take it and have to be bothered by taking it, taking maybe 20-30 minutes of your time to take a test with the information that you already know. Beyond that, like I said, I'm glad that the FAA did this, because I always reflect back when I first got into the hobby. This is really information that people need to know. So again, this is a big plus for the FAA. I'm glad they came up with this training, and overall, just improve the overall safety of the hobby, and we don't have the hobby messed up by one person, because all it takes is one idiot, as I always say, just one a-hole, and here comes the FAA with all of the regulations and rules. But anyway, like I said, the trust training, regardless if you're a licensed 107 pilot, you have to take this test. Anybody who wishes to fly recreational have to take this training. And again, I completely agree with it. And it's not that long. It's easy for anybody, but it's necessary. And it's basic information that people need to know in order to fly in airspace. So I'm all for this anyway. People, I know there's gonna be people gonna feel differently about it, but that's just life. That's what it is, be human. But anyway, I'm always all for this trust training, and that's just my view on it. Anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.